questions during this session, we will definitely follow up with an email and with any responses. Over the past year, we have recognized that though we have made some progress in addressing tobacco use and secondhand smoke, which remains the #1 cause of preventable death and disease, there is still a lot of work to be done. As the CDC Public Health guidelines highlight, health equity is the opportunity for everyone to reach their full health potential, regardless of any socially determined circumstances. Tobacco-related disparities are complex and they affect all of us, either directly or indirectly. As the Health Equity Task Force, it is our mission to advocate for the opportunity to be healthy regardless of where you live or work, to reduce disparities among groups among those most affected by tobacco use and secondhand smoke exposure, to address the factors that influence tobacco-related disparities, and also to build community partnerships and support from a variety of stakeholders to eliminate tobacco-related disparities and achieve health equity for all. Today, we are focusing on the lack of equal protections for gaming workers, particularly those that work in Gary. We have a number of people with us today, and we have Tracy Lewis with us today, and she is one of our local coalitions. She's with Can I Help? And I don't know if she is free right now to, if she is able to give us, and we certainly would welcome her to give us an update on some of the conversations that she has had with the communities. Tracy, are you available?
Hi, everyone. Sure. Thanks for starting my Monday with a bang. No, I really appreciate this opportunity to be a part of this, and thank you, Irene. We've been having a number of different conversations out in community to discuss how folks are outraged that there is a possibility that the Spectacle Jack Entertainment Group may open the casino here in Gary as allowing smoking, when throughout Ohio, Indiana, Canada, they are smoke-free. And so as we've been discussing on various calls, but we also had a call with some faith-based leaders just to share how we want to join our voices together and do everything we can to communicate to them that this is not something that the Gary community and surrounding communities is wanting, and will stand up and be heard on that issue.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Sorry to just throw you in there like that. But today we have the pleasure and the privilege to have two guest speakers, Tracy Kennedy and Nick Torres, and they are with two of our national partner organizations. And we have been working with them for several years for not only our local tobacco control, but also our statewide initiatives. We are happy to have them join us today to give us an overview of the gaming industry and how too many Americans are falling through the gaps in being protected. And then we have, following Nick, we have Lori Latham, who is one of Gary's own. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over, and I think that each speaker can just turn it over to the next speaker, and then we will follow up with questions and discussion. Okay, Tracy, I'm going to turn to Tracy Kennedy. I'm going to turn that over to you right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Irene. And thanks everyone for allowing me the space to speak with you today and to join us for your lunch hour, which always feels short. Of course, you're working through your lunch hour by joining us. So I hope you'll enjoy your lunch and take some time to listen today. So let me just pull these slides up real quick. So my name is Tracy Kennedy, and I work for a national nonprofit called the Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights and the Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation. We have been advocating for smoke-free air for more than 40 years. The organization was founded and is based in Berkeley, California, where sometimes the more wild ideas are born when it comes to public health policy change. But there are a few of us kind of out in the wild, so to speak. So I'm the Midwest State Strategist, and I'm based in Des Moines, Iowa. But prior to moving here 2 years ago, I was born and raised and spent my life in Missouri, which is very politically similar and has a very similar gaming market to Indiana. So I just share that a little bit with you about my brief background. And I've been with A&R for the last 5 years, and I've been fortunate enough to make many trips to Indiana. So I see some familiar faces on the call, and again, appreciate y'all having me today. So in addition to covering Midwest states, one of my, kind of what A&R calls on me to do is to better understand the commercial casino gaming market and how we can close gaps in smoke-free protections. And you might be thinking, why is that such a big priority for a public health organization? And it's because casinos remain one of the largest employers with the largest number of employees without smoke-free protections. So I think this is the perfect time for us to be having this conversation about Gary as the proposed casino. We're going to talk about this just in a minute, but I was talking about hiring, and so these are large employers in many communities, but don't have the same smoke-free protection. So as I talk today, just a couple of key takeaways that I'll give you first from the get-go is that we're not debating the pros and cons of casino gaming. We're just talking about how to ensure a healthy workplace for everyone. And truly, another key point is that we believe the greatest way to achieve health equity is through policy change, because without exemptions. So policy change is a way to ensure that everyone has access to the same smoke-free air that's required by law, rather than individual business owner decisions. And my third kind of takeaway is that really my role that I serve in my professional role is to help support you all as local advocates to provide you any tools or resources or remove any barrier to you taking action. So if you do nothing else from today, I hope that we will help move you to feel compelled to start having conversations about smoke-free air and how essential that is to Gary. But if you go to have those conversations and you think, wow, I really wish I had this factor figure or this background, that's what I feel like my role is. And you come to me and I can help brainstorm and strategize how to provide that information. But you all have just this tremendous power to impact your community, and I really hope you'll feel called to step up and start making that change today. So I'm just going to provide just a little bit of background about what's been happening nationally in terms of smoke-free casinos, because I think it's really relevant and it's upon us to connect the dots. Whether it's because we're kind of in quarantine, sometimes we can feel really isolated in terms of what casino gaming means for our community, but there's a much broader, more global gaming industry, and it has its own lingo. And that's something, again, us at A&R have worked to understand so we can work together in partnership with casinos. So I think probably one of the most exciting things that I want to share with you all today is that in light of all of the, despite all the challenges that 2020 has brought in terms of COVID-19 and businesses closing, is that many businesses have been making the choice to reopen as smoke-free, kind of creating this, sense that smoke-free is the new normal. And so prior to about March 2020, there were about 800 smoke-free casinos nationwide. And that is in 20 states. I'll show a map in a minute, but in 20 states, all commercial casinos are required to be smoke-free by state law, which includes places like Illinois and Ohio. So all casinos in those states have to be smoke-free no matter what. But in the last 6 months, there have been, about 150 to 200 casinos that have chosen to reopen as smoke-free because of respiratory risk factors. And many of these properties are actually tribal casino properties. Tribes are sovereign, and so they make their own determinations. Their tribal leadership councils make their own determinations about policies for their properties. So they are not subject to the same commercial property laws. So for a long time, there was kind of this disconnect, and in a state, even like Indiana or Iowa, where I live, commercial casinos would say, well, we can never go smoke free because our tribal partners aren't required to. Well, now tribal casinos are stepping up and saying our people are at risk. We have to protect our employees. We have to protect our community. So we're going to reopen smoke free. And then commercial casinos. So all casinos in the state of Pennsylvania and New Jersey we're required to reopen as smoke free in accordance with the governor's mask mandates. And then in not so far away Michigan, there's several tribal casinos, and then all of the commercial casinos are in downtown Detroit. So in the Detroit area, all those casinos are now operating as smoke free. So, you know, kind of as I said in my opening, our focus is always 100% free policy, either at the municipal, at the local level, or at the statewide level. However, in these kind of unique times, we are calling upon individual businesses and decision makers to kind of do the right thing and to make, you know, complying with a mask ordinance or smoke-free permanent. So I also just want to point out something interesting about the gaming industry, and something I encourage you all to do is like set up a Google alert, or, you know, just watch your local newspaper for what the gaming industry is saying about their plans for your community. So the casino gaming industry, they're kind of, it's really important for them to be viewed as a business leader, and corporate social responsibility and a commitment to diversity and inclusion are things that are very important and touted by some of the top gaming companies, as well as the American Gaming Association, which is kind of like the trade group for casino gaming. So I just had to pull this from the American Gaming Association, where this one company, Boyd Gaming, which is a large commercial gaming company, talks about their commitment to hiring people of color, to hiring women, and making sure women are also in leadership positions. And so whether the gaming industry is touting their commitment to diversity and inclusion, or touting what a great place it is to work as a casino, I think we're talking from the same playbook. Like if that is their commitment, then smoke free easily fits within those standards that they have set for themselves. So here's one headline I pulled that was from March, but emphasizing the importance of a local minority hiring strategy for the Hard Rock Casino proposed for Gary. And as soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to drop some links in the chat box, but I pulled an article from like 4 days ago about the hiring fairs that are proposed and that they're planning for the Gary property. And in the headline, it says that they plan to hire 200 full-time dealers, that if you go to a dealer school, that there are all of these incentives. That's such a great place to work. You get full-time benefits, you get a bonus for going through dealer school. And then below it talks about their COVID-19 safety protocol. A lot of the hiring's been being done at a Majestic Star property, but they talk about, you know, body checks, temperature checks, requiring wearing a mask. So it doesn't feel like a stretch for them to then commit to smoke-free air if they're already committing in all of these other ways to good hiring practices and being a good place to work. I mentioned corporate social responsibility, or for short CSR, and this is something that's really come up in the last 2 years as a you know, really big highlight for the casino gaming industry. And when we go to their trade shows or we go to their conferences, there's always so many sessions about corporate social responsibility and their commitment to that. And a lot of it has to do about being more energy efficient and how their approach to recycling, or they'll tout that now they have a buffet that focuses features local farmers, and that they, you know, donate extra food to the food pantry. So all of that to say, public image is really important. And Hard Rock, whether it's in Gary or in Cincinnati, Ohio, or whatever it is, they want to maintain their public image of being a business and community leader. They'll often say that, you know, as gaming companies, they're the most regulated industry in the country, and they're the most likely to comply with those regulations. So I think we're just trying to push that a little bit further and say, again, smoke-free fits very well within your commitment to corporate social responsibility. Here's that map I mentioned before. So the states you see in light blue are those 20 states where there is a statewide law that requires all commercial properties to be smoke-free. Michigan and Pennsylvania and New Jersey are smoke-free right now per COVID-19 reopening guidelines. So those are the orange highlighted. So I just want to point out that, you know, Indiana is kind of in this smoke-free sandwich, and Nick's going to talk about a little bit about revenues, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Indiana then is enjoying this, you know, revenue spike because all of their neighbors are smoke-free. So the gaming industry has long used outdated information that they borrowed actually from the tobacco industry. Most of the things they say about the harms to economic loss and revenue loss due to smoke-free came directly from the tobacco industry. So I think that's important to come in to keep in mind. But it's actually pretty complex, all of the factors that contribute to casino gaming revenue, and smoke-free just doesn't seem to be one of them. There are thriving Hard Rock properties and several other smoke-free states. And part of what inspired some of the movement in Terre Haute is when we took a field trip to a smoke-free Hard Rock property in Cincinnati. So I just think it's important for you all as you embark on these conversations to have this kind of background, because unless you are an enthusiastic gaming patron on your own, you just may not have been aware of some of these things. I'm also going to drop in the chat box one quick thing that we've been collecting and offering guidance on tips on virtual organizing. And we're actually seeing some great success of virtual coalition meetings, virtual meetings with decision makers. And we even had one smoke-free campaign in Shreveport, Louisiana. The coalition started organizing around March, all online, did all of their decision maker meetings online. The council reviewed the policy, met, and is now implementing a 100% smoke-free policy, including their local casinos, all done virtually. So if you're thinking it might be a challenge, or you want to wait until you can gather in person again, I would just encourage you to look at some of our guidance and to work with us on how you might have these conversations virtually. So the last thing I just want to leave you with before I kick it over to Nick is just a few tips that we recommend for taking action when it comes to calling upon either an individual casino company or on a community to implement a 100% smoke-free policy. And really, I think our priority today is to talk about smoke-free air and create a public outcry, you know, to say this matters to us, this is an injustice, and we don't understand why not Gary. There has to be a there, right? People, decision makers or the casino want to know people are talking about it. So we want to create this groundswell of positive public pressure to do the right thing, so it's more uncomfortable for the casino to open as smoking than it is as smoke-free, right? So things like social media posts, whether it's on your own personal social media or organization you volunteer for, talking about calling on for smoke-free air, a letter to the editor, writing some sample language either from those posts or a letter to submit to like your organizational newsletter. If you send out an email blast, that's a great content. And all in all, just having conversations that help people to know that there are smoke-free casinos. If people are only familiar with the Northwest Indiana market and they never even go to the Chicago side, they may not know that smoke-free casinos exist and that they're thriving and possible. Another way we work to get on the radar of casino leadership are online patron reviews. And so like either in Google or Yelp or on Facebook, leaving a review, loved the casino, wish there was no smoking, that sort of thing. If Hard Rock opens one up, considering joining the Players Club, because then you're kind of seen as a core member of their constituency to offer that kind of feedback. And always, I mean, the center and the focus and highlight of this work is protecting employees. And so any way we can engage potential employees to say, you know, I really want to work at the new proposed property, but I don't want to have to choose between my health and this new job and paycheck. I think now's a really unique time to engage those workers because they have not yet been hired. So I took an extra 2 of Nick's minutes, so I apologize, Nick. Um, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Indiana casino gaming revenue. So I'll kick it over to Nick, and then I will drop a few links in the chat box that I spoke about. So thank you all. Nick.
Thanks, Tracy. It's okay. You can take several more minutes if you want. We'll add some more time at the end too. You have so much good stuff to say. You're a wealth of knowledge nationally on smoke-free casinos, and you know, kudos to Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation for really leading the charge for, you know, what do you say, 40 years now. So similar to Tracy. The American Lung Association is also interested in casinos, and you might say, why? Well, that's because we're really rooted in our vision of a world free of lung disease. And so for us in Indiana, and I'm based here in Indianapolis, for us here in Indiana, a lot of our lung disease comes from our high smoking rates and our high rates of exposure to secondhand smoke. And so a lot of our policy work, a lot of our program work, a lot of our initiatives in Indiana, when it comes to the mission of the Lung Association, tend to focus on lowering our tobacco use rates in the state. And so that's where we come at it. And so we also have an opportunity, as Tracy mentioned, to kind of lift up the different ways in which different communities are often impacted by tobacco use, secondhand smoke, in the workplace, in the home, in lots of different areas. And so for us, when we saw this issue emerging, where a number of casinos across the country were reopening smoke-free because of COVID, and really taking seriously the precautions that should be put in place to protect workers, to protect the public, and to stop the spread of COVID-19. You know, we saw an opportunity to talk more about how not just COVID-19, but our underlying risk factors in Indiana really come into play when we talk about secondhand smoke in the workplace and tobacco use, and just generally. So we wanted to talk about why Gary has an opportunity here. The leadership in Gary, the community in Gary, workers in Gary have an opportunity with this new casino opening to really start fresh, to start with a brand new facility. And what would that look like to have a facility that is free of secondhand smoke, where workers that are on the job for 8-10 hour shifts even aren't subject to a casino full of secondhand smoke, but rather a workplace that is a healthy place for everybody. So that's kind of where we're coming from, and appreciate your time today. I appreciate Irene for inviting us in to present some information. So I wanted to start with just an overview of what the gaming industry kind of looks like across the region. You know, Tracy mentioned that we are in Indiana. We're in a bit of a smoke-free gaming sandwich, I guess you could look at it that way. We're smack between two states in Illinois and Ohio that have all of their casinos smoke-free by law. And since then, as Tracy mentioned, Michigan has actually been added to the equation here. So even more smoke-free gaming coming onto the scene. But we just wanted to take a kind of an overview of all of the regional gaming in our area. So Indiana was one of the early adopters of gaming when it comes to the Midwest region. And since then, Ohio and Illinois have really carved out a big chunk of the market as well. So over the last 10 years in particular, and we'll see this in just a minute, the are all of our profits in the gaming industry have been eaten away slowly by Ohio's casinos. They've been big competitors. And so I think it's important to recognize when we're talking about gaming, all of the success of other states in the region are in smoke-free casinos, right? So we want to start questioning this idea that gambling and smoking go hand in hand. And so we really encourage communities with gaming facilities that are not smoke-free to start doing some education on what gaming looks like in states that are smoke-free. So we see a number of casinos in the yellow around the region, and importantly as well, new growth happening in the gaming market. And you'll see those highlighted in green. So both Indiana and Illinois have new casinos that are either under construction currently or are slated to open in the next year or two. And so that's important to highlight as well, because we want to look at the gaming market as a growth, as a very growth-minded industry. And so when we talk about casinos and thinking of if you're a casino operator and you're coming in and you're saying, hey, I want to operate a really profitable casino, where should I go? Well, a lot of the new casinos that are opening are in smoke-free states. And so I think it's important to recognize that casinos know how to be successful in smoke-free spaces. And so from our side of things, the health advocate side in me says, well, why shouldn't everybody be smoke-free then? Why shouldn't we allow workers to have a healthy working environment? Why would you have some that are operating full of smoke, and we know all of the dangers of secondhand smoke, and you have some other casinos that are smoke-free and are just, the workers are protected day in and day out from the dangers of secondhand smoke. So to me, that seems like a no-brainer. So wanted to show just a little bit of the overview of what that looks like in the region here. Here we zoom in a little bit more specifically on some of the changes that Tracy mentioned. So I won't spend a whole lot of time here, but Tracy mentioned we've had a number of changes here, even in Indiana, adopting smoke-free protections since reopening post-COVID-19. So some really exciting developments. So it's not just us being sandwiched between Ohio and Illinois, but rather we're starting to see smoke-free protections for casino workers in Indiana too. So all that to say, I think this is not just a flash in the pan, right? This is a growing trend. This is a trend for casinos to recognize, hey, smoke-free is really something that's important to our workers, to our patrons, and in terms of new markets and the industry as a whole. One other quick thing about Illinois in particular, right? So sometimes you have gaming operators who will say, you know, we've got a smoke-free area, there's a non-smoking room, or even smoke-free poker rooms. That's been kind of a common occurrence. Even in otherwise smoking casinos, you might have a smoke-free poker room. You know, as we're playing and sitting for, you know, an hour or more at the poker table, the idea that you'd have a non-smoking poker room is kind of a common thing. But, you know, this idea that it's different if you're sitting at a slot machine. You know, people who smoke use the slot machines. And so we might have a smoke-free room or a non-smoking area, but smoke-free entirely or smoke-free slot machines would never work. There's this myth, right, built into the casino industry. And something that I found enlightening when I was doing my research, and something that's of course relevant for Northwest Indiana, is just the number of smoke-free slot venues in Illinois. Illinois is a little unique in that not just the casinos, but video gaming terminals, as they're called, too, are really in places in like truck stops, in gas stations, bars, you name it, across the state. There's thousands of these venues around Illinois, and all of those are smoke-free by law too. So these are really successful. You see here over $20 billion has been gambled on these machines over the last number of years. And so smoke-free gaming is here to stay, whether it's poker rooms, whether it's slot machines. Smoke-free casinos and gaming venues are successful. So as we talk about some of the, speaking of revenue, I wanted to highlight some of the differences across Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana in terms of the gaming revenues. So you see here on the left side, this is Illinois' electronic gaming device revenue. And this is a combination of those venues that I mentioned before, as well as the slot machines and things that are in casinos too. So over time, you see just the overall really steady growth back over the last 8 to 10 years. We've seen these are successful operations and they're smoke-free. Overall, we see Illinois, their gaming revenue and as a whole casino industry on the right side, you see that the takeaway from here is the gaming devices outside of casinos are changing the way that the gaming industry is operating in Illinois. So more and more people are being drawn to these gaming machines outside of casinos, and that's important to just note that the market is changing and adapting, but this is all within a smoke-free context. So inside a casino or not, people are gaming a lot, and they're using machines in smoke-free settings. In Ohio and Indiana, kind of a similar trend. You see the growth in Ohio on the left side, the steady growth over the last number of years since the casinos really started opening in the last 10 years. In Ohio, there's been incredibly robust growth. They've been a big competitor to us here in Indiana. And that's also smoke-free by law as well. So all of the growth you're seeing here is smoke-free gaming in the region. On the other hand, there's Indiana's gaming revenues over the last several years, relatively flat. So we're just not seeing the same sort of revenue growth. And that I think might start to change here as we're seeing some additional investments in Indiana and new facilities being constructed, and now smoke-free construction happening. So I think the casino industry here is poised to start attracting different clientele. If you think about younger millennials, for example, who are now, the casinos are interested in drawing younger customers into the casinos. And so the ways that you have to attract those portions of the market might be a little different. Smoking rates have declined over time, and the younger you are, the more likely it is that you are used to going out and enjoying smoke-free entertainment options. So that might be something we start to see in the future as well. Another word about some of the growth areas of gaming. Here I wanted to highlight, and this is data directly from the American Gaming Association, 3 of the top 5 fastest growing markets in the last year are smoke-free. So Massachusetts, New York, and Delaware are all smoke-free gaming states. And they're topping the growth markets in terms of casinos across the country. So all that to say, smoke-free gaming is popular. Smoke-free gaming is profitable, and it's so much more healthy, right, for the workers. Also wanted to just take a moment to talk about smoke-free gaming. As we're talking about growing and changing markets, wanted to provide an example of the way that Hard Rock talked about smoke-free gaming when they were coming into, this is from their presentation to Rockford, Illinois city leaders, as they were pitching for the new casino in Rockford to be a Hard Rock casino. So these are just a couple of slides taken from that presentation. So first of all, they highlighted some of their work in Ohio. And as you see, I've circled here, this was the #1 casino in Ohio that they grew and they turned around under the Hard Rock brand. So Hard Rock comes into Rockford and says, hey, we've got this track record of success. We are used to operating successful casinos in smoke-free states like Ohio. And think about all of the good brand loyalty, the good power that we have behind the Hard Rock brand. So on this slide, they were demonstrating, we took this casino in Northfield Park and we grew it by almost $200 million. So see the growth just in a single year from 2013 to 2014. So they're saying like we added this value to the Northfield Park Casino. After they sold it, right? You see in red here, the revenues declined. So Hard Rock comes into Rockford, Illinois and says, look at us, we've operated smoke-free casinos. This is in our portfolio of successful casino venues, and it's in another smoke-free state, Ohio. So we see here Hard Rock's interest in investing in smoke-free properties in smoke-free states, and just their expertise of operating, in particular, operating smoke-free casinos. So again, we go back to the question, why not Gary, right? Hard Rock's coming in to Gary, and why not have a healthy workplace that's going to be successful, that's going to be attracting different younger gamers, for example, and also have a healthy workplace for the workers. This is also an example from the presentation where they provided some examples of what their casino in Rockford, Illinois might look like. So you can see here, and we'll zoom in just a bit. They have built in these outdoor spaces as they're planning their casino. They've already said, you know, we know that you're a smoke-free gaming state. This will be a smoke-free casino, of course. And so we're going to incorporate smoke-free spaces across the whole casino, but also provide some smoking outdoor opportunities for those who want to smoke. They can do that outside. And so wanted to highlight here the ways that smoke-free is incorporated into the design plans for a casino. Casinos coming in know how to be successful being smoke-free, and they plan for that just like they would plan any other aspect of their operations. So here we see, by contrast, the proposed plans for the Hard Rock Casino in Terre Haute. This was taken from January of this year when they first released some of their plans. Notably, the plans did not include smoke-free spaces. So they came in to Terre Haute, you know, not incorporating those. And however, after working with the community, they revised their plans, right? So we see here, this was taken from their plans released in September, that after advocates locally really stepped up and said, hey, we want to have a smoke-free casino, and we want Hard Rock and Spectacle to abide by the smoke-free policies locally. Hard Rock did go back and revise their plans. And so you see here, the casino will be entirely smoke-free indoors. So we're really excited about that. And they've incorporated smoking spaces outdoors. So casinos know how to do this. They know how to make smoke-free indoor casinos successful. And finally, just to close, some work that we've done here locally in the state. The Lung Association did a little bit of some research here. We got out and talked to Indiana voters over the summer just to get their thoughts on smoke-free and secondhand smoke. Over half of Indiana voters consider secondhand smoke a very serious health hazard, and so I think more and more people are recognizing that secondhand smoke is a dangerous carcinogen, just as tobacco use itself is. And so, in particular, when it comes to gaming, we asked specifically for folks' preference on smoking and non-smoking areas in casinos. And so overwhelmingly, the public considers smoke-free casinos safer and cleaner options, both for customers and for the workers, right? So we see consistently that the public is concerned about workers in these environments, and they would prefer if the casinos would be smoke-free. And you hear you say over 70% say that it would be a much more pleasant experience. So we wanted to, again, come back and say, why not Gary? Gary has an opportunity to have a healthy and successful working environment for hundreds of workers coming into this new facility. And we're hopeful that, that the community recognizes what a great opportunity this could be as well. I'll pause here, and I think that I am transitioning to Lori. Is that right?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Nick. Am I supposed to pause for questions for Nick or just keep rolling? Keep rolling? All right. Well, and for full disclosure, I thought that I was pretty tech savvy until the entire world went virtual. And then I realized I don't know how to do half of the things most everybody else knows how to do with Zoom and Google Meet, including sharing screens and sharing my presentation. So I have printed out most of my props. So just keep watching the camera. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I'll do my best to try and drop some links in the chat later, but no promises. I may just have to email those links to somebody else and you can drop them in the chat. Either way, even before I get started, I wanted to first acknowledge that many of us on this call are in sheer survival mode. My responsibility is to give you a call to action, but I do want to acknowledge that even as many of us sit here today, though a lot of us have experienced extreme highs, I'm looking at Tracy, she had a new baby. Some of us have even had new jobs, have entered into new relationships. Others of us, and probably even similarly, those of us who have experienced great highs have also experienced great lows and extreme loss. Some of us have lost friends, some of us have lost family members. Many of us have lost income or know of those who have lost income due to COVID-19. So I just want to acknowledge that. And then you add to that, right, the recent news of our country's election. And while some may have been relieved or even excited, others were, and others may have been upset, regardless of where you are on that particular issue. I feel like the entire ordeal has made many of us just very, very anxious, right? And dealing with huge amounts of uncertainty. So again, before I move on to a call of action, I want to at least honor the fact that many of us may feel like we are just incapable of taking on any additional actions or joining another campaign, especially if we don't feel like it directly impacts the health and wellness of our immediate family. And then add to that, you know, I speak as a Black woman, and a spotlight is shining on racial injustice in this country. And for many of us, it can be very painful to watch. Many of us see our daughters, our sons, or our brothers or sisters in the faces of those who have been killed by the police. The societal issues that make the Black community more vulnerable to deaths from COVID-19 have long been prevalent and continue to be a source of anxiety and stress. So with all that, with everything going on in 2020, I'm here to make the case that making sure Gary's land-based casino opens smoke-free is indeed enough to make real, substantive, sustainable change in communities in our country. And I say that believing that we may not feel like it's enough given all that is going on, but I am here to reassure you that eliminating secondhand smoke exposure to people at work is indeed the most important thing that we can do to improve public health and impact health disparity in 2020. And I'm going to start with a quote from Isabel Wilkerson. She's the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Caste. Again, I'll try to drop the link in the chat, but I have a picture of the book. And can you see it? And I'm using a virtual background. I did learn how to do that because I'm in my basement and it's a mess. But hopefully you can see the you can see the book. I'm going to read a quote from that. What people look like, or rather the race they have been assigned or are perceived to belong to, is the visible cue to their caste. It is the historic flashcard to the public of how they are to be treated, where they are expected to live, what kinds of positions they are expected to hold, whether they belong in this section of town or that seat in a boardroom, whether they should be expected to speak with authority on this or that subject, whether they will be administered pain relief in a hospital, whether their neighborhood is likely to adjoin a toxic waste site or to have contaminated water flowing from their taps, whether they are more or less likely to survive childbirth in the most advanced nation in the world, or whether they may be shot by authorities with impunity. And again, that's by Isabel Wilkerson. So when we ask why not Gary, it is not a rhetorical question. We are asking real questions and demanding real answers. Where you live, what you look like, or even your income should not determine whether or not your workplace is smoke-free. And then I have another prop, even though this is terrible, so I'll just have to drop the link in the chat. It's from an article that announces Terre Haute getting its license, casino in the works. And it's from the Tribune Star, dated September 26. And the quote from Gab Gibson is, recognizing we had to make a good business decision for the company to maintain a solid financial ground for the future and provide a welcoming entertainment facility for all Hoosiers and guests, we had to look at data, become creative, and benchmark other facilities which were successful with this model. Again, begging the question, if this is something that works for business as well as for the community and the health of residents in Terre Haute, why not Gary? We'll be singing that in chorus before the end of this today. And then again, these are our real questions, right? And these are from our flyer. I don't even know if I should just continue to try and share my screen, my video, but we're asking real questions. Why should Gary get stuck with the smoky casino, especially when we know that smoke-free casinos are cleaner and safer? The working class has been hit the hardest by COVID-19. So why doesn't our community's health matter to Hard Rock and Spectacle, especially knowing that this is something that they've been doing to protect the health and welfare of their workers all over the country? So those are our questions. Why not Gary? And now it's time for me to ask you all to do some very simple things to help advance this very important public health issue. Can you raise your hand for me if you have social media? And if your camera isn't on, you can just, hit the raise hand thing button. If you have social media, it's going to be critical to our campaign. What we are hoping to build is a groundswell of community voices and messages advocating for Gary's land-based casino to open smoke-free. Please like the Lake County Minority Tobacco Prevention on Facebook, and there are a number of other organizations. Perhaps we can drop the American Lung Association, Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, all in the chat so that you can follow those and begin sharing on your social media. Also, go to Tobacco Free LCIN, and LCIN, just to help you remember, is Lake County, Indiana. tobaccofreelcin.org, and complete the I Support Smoke-Free Air card. These cards are going to be used in our upcoming campaign, and it helps to send the message of how many more people out there support what we're doing. Also, your newsletters. If you are a part of an organization that that publishes newsletters or submits newsletters to your followers or to your constituents, please contact me, Irene, or Cynthia. We can draft articles for your newsletters about this important subject. Tracy mentioned this in her presentation as well. You know, when you go to other places in this country, smoke-free air is kind of normal, right? When my friends come and visit me, and there's a restaurant here in my neighborhood that's not smoke-free, it's a bar, restaurant that's not smoke-free, we can't go there. They're just not used to breathing in secondhand smoke while they eat. This is something that, or this is work for us to let people know that smoky casinos don't have to be normal. In many places they aren't. In Illinois, they take for granted the fact that they're smoke-free air. Also, go online to Gary's Casino, Majestic Star Casino, but you don't have to stop there. You can also visit Ameristar, which is in Hammond, which is in East Chicago, or Horseshoe, which is in Hammond, and post something in their patient reviews. I like to use Yelp as well as Google just to complain about the smokiness of the casino. And then if you're like me, you have a friend or a family member who is employed with the casino. I know a number of slot technicians, a number of dealers, and this is a good way to engage our friends and our family members. It also helps ignite me for the work, being able to see a face, being able to put a name, somebody that I love, knowing that I am advocating for them to have a healthier workplace also ignites me for the work. So continue to stay in touch with us, with Irene. Look for our updates, look for our calls to action to stay updated on this issue. And thanks so much. I see we're at 12:55, so thanks so much for being on this call. I'm gonna shut up and listen for questions.
Lori, do you mind showing us exactly where the supporter card is at on the LCIN website?
I was just trying to unmute myself. If you go to support smoke-free air, right there on the landing page, you'll see a section that says support smoke-free air, and it will take you right to that card. I can also, in our follow-up emails, I can also send you the direct link to that page, and we can make sure that everyone gets it, is able to go directly to that page in order to sign up for it. And that is the website, tobaccofreelcin.org is the website. And you can always, my email is there on the screen now along with Cynthia's. So you can always send us an email and let us know that you need some additional links in order to get signed up, or if you just give us your contact information, then we will just include it in the database. Okay. Any other questions? And if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. And
quick question, Irene, for the group. When is the next, this is kind of a lunch and learn. When's the next event, either meeting or what's the next thing people can participate in?
I'm going to throw that back to Lori.
I'm sorry, because I meant to mention that. Our coalition meetings are now all virtual, and they are on the third Thursday of every month. And I would like for everyone on this call to join us at our coalition meeting. I'll use the same email addresses here and send you all a link to the Zoom invitation.
Any other questions? I am not seeing any other questions. Taylor, if you want to stop sharing that screen, then we can kind of get, there we go. Okay. And I do see that someone put the link in, or we have some different links. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Sally, for getting that link for us. It's in the chat box. So if there aren't any other questions, I just want to thank Tracy Lewis, Tracy Kennedy, Nick Terras, Lori, and also thank Taylor for her assistance today. And we are here to answer any other questions. If you have any other requests for additional information, a small presentation, phone calls, whatever you need, we are here. So thank you, everyone. We were glad to spend our lunchtime with you today. And if there aren't any other questions or any other requests, then we will see you next time. Okay. I do have, okay. Nina, were you trying to ask something? Apparently, I don't know if someone was trying to ask a question. But if we do get her question, we will definitely send out the questions and answers to everyone. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you all soon.